Okay, so this let's call it Flatgate story is really getting out of hand. The latest development is a group of anarchists, not very many of them, probably four or five people, but still a group of anarchists are now protesting outside the flat in Camberwell, where Boris Johnson and Carrie Symonds might have to use past tense now lived. And this is according to the Daily Mail. Members of Class War, that must be the specific group, stood outside the home of Carrie Symonds, 31, holding placards saying class war and quoting a 19th century anarchist. And the quotation reads, just bear with me a second because I'm scrolling through the report. Um, this is a quotation by Lucy Parsons. We must devastate the avenues where the wealthy live, by Lucy Parsons. So they're gathered outside this flat. They're not being violent, but they're holding up this banner, clearly intending to, make the presence felt. Um, and it's led by Ian Bowen, 71, who was once branded Britain's most dangerous man. This is a man who has been cautioned apparently for harassing Jacob Rees-Mogg's children. Um, you know, uh, well, not cautioned by the police, I should amend that. He recently faced criticism after accosting Jacob Rees-Mogg's children. And this comes after a recording of the couple, we know this, having a row, was sent to the Guardian newspaper, and Remainer neighbours Eve Lee, 34, and Tom Penn, 30. Um, group from Class War arrived at the apartment and held up signs saying, fuck Boris, fuck the government, right? Okay, this is my take on this. By the way, right now, Boris Johnson is on LBC answering questions. I do believe that Johnson needs to face these debates with Jeremy Hunt before the vote. I believe strongly in that. I don't think it should be a coronation. I don't think Boris should be avoiding that sort of direct head-to-head debate scenario. Um, I don't think hustings is good enough, and I think you need to have a head-to-head so that the candidates can see how the voters can see how the two candidates compare to each other. But this sort of personal invasion of his partner's home is an absolute disgrace. And I think that the collective media are partly to blame for this. I mean, how do they know the address? It's probably because of the media coverage that's been going on, the incessant media coverage that's descended on this place. I really think this disgusting practice of doorstepping needs to end. And seeing these journalists gathering outside, I mean, they were sitting there filming this protest with the banner and all. This is somebody's home. This isn't an office. This isn't a government building. This is somebody's home. Whatever you think of the wealth poverty divide in this country, and I have views about that. I don't like to see the sort of unfairness that we see of, for example, claimants getting sanctioned by the DWP whilst bankers get big bonuses. I felt anger over that. There is real divisions in society. But ultimately, I believe privacy is a human right. And what these anarchists are doing is violating that privacy. And the media is pandering to it, is playing into their hands, is encouraging them. There was another video emerge of Carrie Symonds and Boris Johnson apparently having an amicable conversation somewhere, ostensibly taken by a paparazzo. I don't know, but she says she's too frightened to return home. I don't think that's because of Boris. I don't know 100%. I think it's far more likely because of this sort of attention. And because if she does return home, she will be hounded by these anarchist thugs. And I'm calling them thugs because if they're going to someone's house, if they're going to, yell in people's faces outside their own home, and that's what they would do, then that's the sort of adjective they deserve. So really, this is getting out of hand. The media needs to start taking responsibility. They need to take away their camera people from this address. It's a disgrace, an absolute bloody disgrace. I'm angry about it. Not because I've much time for Boris Johnson or his girlfriend, but because they seem to think that they're normalizing what is essentially harassment. I mean, have we learned nothing from the phone hacking scandal? I really think it's setting a negative precedent because, any public figure will then get this is giving a green light for any public figure to have journalists and anarchists harassing them outside their own homes. I believe that public figures need to face scrutiny. If they're politicians, they need to face tough questions about policy at their office, at Westminster, and elsewhere, not at their own home. This needs to end. And the only way it ends is if people speak up and they say this is wrong. So if you agree with me, then vocalize that opinion on comment sections, on whatever it is, Facebook pages of the outlets that are doing this, because this is going to give a green light for some nutter to try and assassinate someone. That might sound like an exaggeration, but when the media normalize these things, when they normalize harassment, then it gives a green light for all sorts of extremists to think they could do all sorts of things. It's just wrong. So this is really getting out of hand. Yes, Boris needs to face scrutiny. Yes, he needs to face the debates. And by the way, Jeremy Hunt has been very careful not to drag Boris's personal life into this. He's talking about policy areas. He's talking about the debates. I think that's legitimate. But I think he's also right to not try and make capital out of this personal, private affair, which is ultimately what it is. If there'd been any criminal action had taken place, the police would have made arrests that night. That didn't happen. It's a damn disgrace that the media has found out this personal address and they're descending on the home like that. As for those neighbours, they have some answering to do as well. Why were they recording this? They claim it was for evidence. But why did they go to the Guardian newspaper? Does make you wonder.